I think probably the best way to classify viruses is using this systems or systemic approach, because it seems to be the only one that's logical. Because on the one hand, we have names of viruses here, which almost never correspond to their precise taxonomic name, even though they may seem to. You might think that a parvovirus is part of the parvovirus actual name, but actually it's parvoviridae. So I think that the systemic classification is good. I think it's nice to know that they're generally either double-stranded DNA, sometimes single-stranded, or single or double-stranded RNA. Now, in the skin family, these are common viruses we have heard of. We've heard of measles. We may have had measles if we're old enough, also known as rubeola. The German measles variant of viral skin disease is called rubella. So rubeola for measles, rubella for German measles. There's another common skin virus in the Parvoviridae family, or generally parvovirus, causing a disease called erythema infectiosum, and associated with aplastic anemias as well. And then we have our smallpox virus caused by the vaccinia virus, part of the official Poxviridae family. And then we have what we call the VZ virus, because it causes both varicella, which is the common chickenpox, usually in children, as well as herpes zoster or shingles in adults, generally following a dermatome distribution. Same virus, different disease, different age groups. We have the family of the skin herpes viruses, generally HSV1 or herpes simplex virus 1 involved oral vesicular lesions, and HSV2 classically is involved in genital vesicular herpes lesions, but there's a tremendous amount of crossover. We can also talk about the hematopoietic system. Cytomegalovirus, also in the herpes family, causes a wide variety of infections throughout the body, lung, kidneys, but it has a hematopoietic affinity as well, so that's why it's classified here. But like the herpes virus in general, it's ubiquitous. It can infect just about anything. Epstein-Barr virus, a known virus involved in the Burkitt's lymphoma, is the cause of infectious mononucleosis. You may remember that before HIV here got its name, it was called HTLV3, and it wouldn't have been called HTLV3 if there wasn't an HTLV1 and 2. Well, the HTLV1, which, like AIDS, is a single-stranded RNA virus, causes a lot of the adult T-cell leukemias. And of course, the third portion of this, or the third named virus in this family, wound up being called HIV. So HIV, which is now generally HIV1 and 2, was originally HTLV3. And of course, we are going to get and have gotten a big presentation on AIDS. Arboviruses are really nothing more than viruses which are generally brought to the human body by arthropods. That's why they're called arbo, arthropod-borne. They cause a wide variety of central nervous system and hemorrhagic fevers. If you hear of dengue, little outbreaks occur every now and then. Yellow fever, a very serious virus. These are all generally very serious diseases. Dengue has a relatively low mortality, but these are all potentially fatal viruses by virtue of the fact they cause hemorrhagic fevers. And you may have heard of the horrific Ebola disease. These are all arthropod-borne viruses. I think you might remember that the papilloma viruses, the human papillomaviruses, HPV, in the Papovaviridae family, double-stranded DNA, can't really be classified with the skin eruptions or skin lesions. They have a tremendous affinity for squamous mucosa, but not necessarily skin. So we can have a HPV infection in a non-keratinized stratified squamous mucosa like the cervix or the vagina or the esophagus, or stratified squamous mucosas that are not part of skin. And then I think rightfully so, moving up to the central nervous system, we have different types of viruses. There's a polio virus, now virtually non-existent, cause of major poliomyelitis epidemics in the 50s and perhaps early 60s. The JC virus, don't confuse that with JC disease, Jakob Creutzfeldt, because this is now a virus. This is not a prion. And it is a cause of a disease in the central nervous system involving a demyelinization called progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy, chiefly in opportunistic infections in immunosuppressed patients. So if you hear of a JC virus, you know it's causing or indicted with PML. And then we have some more arthropod-borne viruses as being perhaps the major cause of viral encephalitises or encephalitides. So if you hear of Eastern, Western, Venezuelan, St. Louis encephalitis, these are all arthropod-borne viruses. And I think that's a good general classification of viruses, knowing that there is no precise classification as of yet. It wouldn't be fair if we didn't talk about another type of virus which do not affect humans directly, but they generally affect bacteria. And in the process of viruses like bacteriophages, plasmids, and transposons infecting bacteria, this bacteria may change its type of virulence with respect to humans. So you can't say that these viruses infect man directly, but they infect bacteria, which infect man and may increase or even decrease its virulence or its susceptibility to antibiotics. So that's worth an honorable mention. Okay, let's move into the bacteria now. Bacteria classified by various classical methods, whether they pick up the gram stain, whether they're gram-positive or negative. In the gram-positive bacteria, whether they're cocci or bacilli, they generally have a thicker wall with a 1-phospholipid layer, whereas the gram-negative ones have a thinner wall with a 2-phospholipid layer. And that's basically the basis between gram-positive and gram-negative gram staining, which would result in a smear, which would be either blue for positive or red for negative. They can also be classified in their overall shape. If they're ball-shaped, they're called cocci. If they're rod-shaped, they're bacilli. Some bacteria do not take up the gram stain, and we'll get into those as well. Sometimes the bacteria can be classified, despite their shape and gram staining properties, into another category of whether they require oxygen to grow, the aerobic bacteria, or they do not require or need oxygen, the anaerobic. Sometimes there's a third intermediate category called the facultative anaerobes. But if you just remember the classification of bacteria as gram staining, shape, and oxygen requirements. Now we're going to get into another little busy diagram here, and I almost have to apologize for this because we'll be rattling off in the next chapter various infections, various types of bacteria. And I know it's going to be a little bit of busy work here, but we only have 4 left, and then we'll get into more graphic and hopefully more interesting stuff. I thank you very much.